It gives me immense pleasure to introduce Mr. Rahul Kumar. He's presently working as Senior President, Government Banking, Yes Bank, based at the Northern Regional Corporate Office. He was a part of the startup team of Yes Bank and had the opportunity of establishing the bank from inception. In his last 16 years at Yes Bank, he has managed key verticals like the project management, marketing, corporate communications, government relations, and institutional business. In his current role as Senior President, Government Banking, he is tasked with leading the bank's business initiatives across treasury, transaction banking, digital banking, retail banking, funded and non-funded product positions, with central public sector undertakings, state public sector undertakings, boards and affiliations, and strategic initiatives with Government of India and state government. He has won many awards like CEO League of Excellence Award for contribution towards developing government banking business, awarded for exemplary contribution towards the institutional building, just to name a few. Mr. Kumar has represented Yes Bank at various national forums as a speaker and a panelist. Over to you, Mr. Kumar. It's indeed a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you, Professor Shivani, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed a pleasure to be speaking to all of you, this batch of PGDM at the New Delhi Institute of Management. While I don't have a presentation as such, but I'll speak to you on a very topical subject, which is exciting, challenging, and I'm sure a sector where most of you would be looking for future opportunities to work for. So the topic is the challenges and the opportunities in the financial services sector in the backdrop of COVID-19, or I would say how we are getting up to face the challenges posed by this pandemic. To begin with, financial institutions globally are monitoring and trying to deal with the impact of COVID-19 on the society, on industry, on economy as a whole. So, one of the key questions that is faced, or one of the key questions which is posed to the business leaders of today, and this is agnostic of sectors, whether it is the financial services sector or any other sector, is how do we ring fence our respective organizations and emerge victorious in the backdrop of such challenging times. I would delve deep on 6 principles which most of the organizations would look at, from a challenge as well as an opportunity perspective. The first point here is the employees. Now, which is the fulcrum for any organization. So how do we deal with the employees in this situation will determine the loyalty and the productivity of employees to come in the coming times. Now, let me give you an example of the banking sector. Now, if you compare the banking sector with the IT sector, there is a possibility that you can work from home. But banking sector is such that you have to be in front of the system. You have to follow certain processes and procedures to ensure that the transaction goes through. In such a complex, in such a regulated industry, how could we support the employees in such a challenging time? Was a challenge for all banks, was a challenge for the regulator as well. But I must here give credit to the regulator as well as the banking institution pan-India. And I don't talk about only Yes Bank, but I'm talking about all organizations in the financial services sector, which has come around to support the employees by adopting work from home for the staff of the banking fraternity, and at the same time also ensuring that customer service is not affected at all. So taking care of the employees is exceedingly important, at this stage. Second point is the customers. Now, so from a financial services sector, customers would be borrowers, could be people who place deposits, could be anybody. So one of the biggest setbacks that the customers have faced is in terms of revenue loss. When we talk about customers, I'm talking about about small industries. I'm talking about mid-sized corporates. I'm talking about large corporates, and across the entire, value chain. So some of these institutions have faced, a revenue loss because of the lockdown in the last 3 to 4 months. Of course, there have been some measures by the government in terms of moratorium that was given to some of the institutions by the banking community to support them, in their working capital requirements, just to give them a pause so that they don't need to pay their principal and interest, for the next 2 to 3 months, and thereafter, so that when they have regular cash flow started coming, then they can start, paying off their principal and interest on loans that they have taken. But more importantly, why I brought this point here is that this also presents a huge opportunity not only for the banking system but also for the customers, to digitize their process. Now is the time, for the organizations to move from a traditional mode of collections and payments that they normally used to do to a more digitized process, procedure, which will not only make their entire working capital cycle, seamless. Let me give you an example, and I'll quote some examples so that it resonates with you, when you discuss this in your classrooms. So let me talk about, let's talk about an educational institution, and this is something that we have personally done, at the bank, and which is an apex, institution of excellence in the technology space. So, as we know, the fee which is paid to the institute is either through a cash or a check or RTGS NEFT. So these were the traditional modes of payments being made to the institute, and which is the collections for the institute. This traditional form of collections and payments has its own innate challenges in terms of reconciliation, in terms of time lag, so and so forth. This was the time for such institutions to get into innovation, involve fintech partners, and which is where the banking system has come around and has pitched a digital proposition wherein the fee collection has become automated through either IPG or through electronic collections, which just requires digital accounts being opened for each and every for each and every student of the institute. Now this helps in reconciliation. This has cut down the time. And why specifically I took this example is because this has not only brought this has not only streamlined their reconciliation process by almost 99%, but has also helped them ease their working capital requirements. While institution doesn't have much of a working capital stress, but more from a corporate perspective, I think it is important for organizations today to move from a traditional form of banking to a more refined and digital form of banking, which will only streamline their entire process of working capital cycle. So therefore, I would say, COVID-19, while it is a setback for all of us, but it also presents a huge opportunity for organizations to completely overhaul their systems and processes, to make them more aligned to the digital mode of banking. Third point is more from a liquidity perspective, which most of the borrowers have faced in the last 3 months. As I mentioned in my first point, in my second point on the customers piece, the regulator has been more than helpful along with the government in providing moratorium to the corporates which are finding it difficult to pay for their principal and interest because of restricted cash flows in the last 4 months. I believe so. One of the key sectors which has taken the brunt of it is the SME and MSME sector, where the cash flows have been very, very restrictive. Now, given whatever experience that I have in the banking sector, I think this is one sector which is an engine of growth for the economy, and unless and until banks and financial institutions come together to offer credit facilities, whether it is LC, whether it is BG, whether it is bill discounting, or any other facility, for that matter, unless and until we come around and support these SMEs, which are sustainable, because at the end of the day, you can't just go on and lending to institutions which are not sustainable. So it is very important for the project to be sustainable, for the banks also, to come around and look at opportunities for funding such SMEs and MSMEs, besides other mid-market corporates, to support their growth in this tough time. Fourth point I would like to mention is about suppliers and vendors. Now, it'll be interesting for you to know who are the suppliers and vendors in a financial services system, be it banks or NBFCs. So let's stick to banks, and let's go back to the 1990s when the banking system was more asset-owned business. So when I say asset-owned business, I'm talking about the banks owning assets in the form of maybe your laptops, your desktops, your printers, your office space, your office buildings. So that was a time when the institutions used to focus on owning such assets. I think in the last 10 years, 15 years, we've seen a complete transition from owned to outsourced model, wherein even the assets are outsourced as, so whether your laptops or desktops or anything else, they are outsourced. So why I have, brought this point today is because, right from owning to outsourcing, one of the key aspects that has come to fore in the last 5 years is the emergence of fintech partners in the banking system. Now, so banking is a highly commoditized business, and unless and until you have an edge, in terms of innovation, you won't be able to survive, and you won't be able to get the customers that you want. Today, if you look at some of the large corporates, there are almost 22 banks who are banking with them. So what is one thing which distinguishes you from the other banking institution is innovation, is the digital intervention that you can bring about in an organization. Let's assume this fact that most of the organizations today are still following the traditional route of banking, as I mentioned a little while back when I was talking about the customer's piece. So therefore, I think fintech partners have a big role to play. They are playing a rock solid role, as we speak, but they have a more important role in the coming times, is what I would say. Again, I would like to quote a very simple example, from whatever little experience that I have, is at working with some of the fintech partners, and then replicating that in some of the institutions. Now, I'll talk about one of the medical institutions, one of the apex ones in India, which goes by the name of All India Institute of Medical Sciences, not the one in Delhi, but in one of the regional geographies. Now, so what the challenge that we faced there was that patients used to come and they used to line up along with the patients and their support staff. So they used to come, stand in queue, make payments for for OPD, for MRI, for X-rays, all across the campus. So it's a sprawling campus of 40 acres. So you can imagine patients and their relatives moving around in serpentine queues along with the patients without them getting the medical attentions. A lot of time is wasted making payments at counters. So so while we talk about digitizing the process, we also talk about bringing in customer convenience. Unless until you bring customer convenience, the system will not change. And this is where we thought of this as an opportunity to work around. And it's a very simple solution. So when you go to the food court, you take you buy a prepaid card, you load it, and then you swipe it across various counters. And this is exactly what we did. So we built a closed loop card, and the patient could, the relatives of the patient could come, load the card, and use that card across the 40-acre campus, across all 37 departments of that hospital, without wasting time on getting the change back, from the cashier. This not only refined the entire process of reconciliation for the institute, but also brought about that customer convenience, which everybody expects today, in all walks of life. So what I want to say here is that fintech partners have an exceedingly high and very important role to play in the coming times. and it is not merely restricted to the banking channel. When we talk about fintech partners, you can also think about the distribution channel that they can they can think about. So, for instance, when we prepare when we come out with a vaccine on COVID, I'm sure there'll be an app which will be developed to track the distribution channels. So some of these things are exceedingly important for us, and for the fintech partners to look at opportunities in such challenging times as well. My fifth point is with respect to the communication and transparency, which is a very small point, but very pertinent in the current scheme of things, where the banking and financial system has to communicate effectively with with customers, with employees, with stakeholders alike, to ensure that there is no disinformation. It's exceedingly critical at this stage. Last point is one of the most important and finds resonance with each and every financial services industry participant, which is the risk modeling systems. Today, if you see the risk modeling system, we had never anticipated a challenge like this can derail the entire industry. And this is agnostic of industry or agnostic of sectors. So whether it is a steel sector or a cement sector, every sector has been impacted. But the risk models in the banking system has to be robust. The matrices has to be robust to take care of, to ensure that the processes are such that it takes into account the challenges and ensures that we fund projects to sustainable projects across the value chain. I think these were the more important points. Towards the end, I would just like to say that while the impact of COVID-19 is still evolving, more importantly, it is how we adapt to the current situation, and how we adopt policy frameworks which will protect the interest of institutions, of industry, of employees, of customers, of suppliers across, which will eventually create world-class institutions that can sustain and endure challenging times in the 21st century. That's all from my side. I will now take some questions if you have, please.
Yeah, okay, that was really short and crisp. I would like to invite Director General Professor Bhumika to please take over.
Hi Rahul, how are you?
Very well, Professor Bhumika.
It was an excellent session, I would say super crisp, but yet very, very informative.
Thank you very much.
Touched upon really good points, which are, I think, very, very relevant right now. So I think we'll start with the question answers, because we'll probably start getting them now. So maybe we can start with something like, since you've been an alumni of our college, so, a lot of students would want to know that what kind of specializations did you choose while you were here, and what led you to go towards the banking industry?
Very, very important question. And, this is something that we also were in ambiguity, at the time when we were in college. And so I took marketing and finance, while, my role today is more from a marketing perspective in a financial services sector. So I handle, the business development efforts. And I would just say that, I think right now it is important for these students to focus on the subjects that they have. And irrespective of what industry they would choose, I think the course itself would help you groom yourselves to take on any sector that you want. While at the end of the day, you will have specializations. You will of course that'll be in the next year, but I'm sure there'll be interests that you will have. But believe me, today, after almost 18 years of work experience, I don't really need to be in marketing or finance. I can also handle HR, or I can handle projects, or you can handle communications. So I think more importantly, focus on your subjects, focus on personality development, which is what I would say, this course is all about. So I think that is my limited point. I think it is more focused on personality development and nothing else. Just focus on that.
I think that's so important, because I think even when you enter an organization, your scope of work is not limited to X, Y, or Z. You'll still be doing a gamut of activities and learning so much more. And you eventually develop a lot of your skills when you start working. So
it's learning on the job at the end of the day, so that's how it is.
Professor Chan, are you taking the second one?
Yeah, yes, I'm taking. Hello, Mr. Rahul. I'm Dr. Chan Tandon. I'm a faculty finance here, right? So it's
Good evening,
really
ma'am.
pleasure. Yeah, it's pleasure to hear you. And we feel so honored that, that you're part of NDIM. Okay, so, one of our students, Kopal Jain, she wants to know that, during this Yes Bank crisis, you as being the senior vice president, so what was your contribution? How did you help Yes Bank to come out of that?
I can say that it is, at some point in time, I'll make a case study, of this. Simply because, I've been, so let me give you a small background, because, I've been with the bank right from inception, and I've seen, how a small fledgling organization becoming a powerhouse, a financial powerhouse, and then getting under the moratorium. So it was like, a parabola, it was like this. But I would say that, I think during this time, we effectively communicated with each and every client, assured them, because the actions of the government and the regulator was swift. So, so whether it is from a capital perspective, whether it is from a ratios perspective, whether it is from a solvency perspective, I think the focus for me personally, our teams across the bank, and I'm not talking only about myself, but I'm talking about the relationship teams, the operations team, and everybody in the bank. The focus was to get our customers back. And that was only possible if you infuse that confidence in your customers, in your clients, that the bank is safe. There are very small instances of, bank going bust in India. The last one that I can think of was in 1993, when the GTB Bank, I won't say it got bust, but I would say that it got merged into Oriental Bank of Commerce. Thereafter, I think it's only Yes Bank which has gone to moratorium, and before that there were other banks also. Given the fact that there is some stress involved, and of course the economy was also in the downturn, so we've seen some concentrated large exposures, which has led to a higher NPAs, etc., etc. But more importantly, I think this particular phase has taught us a lesson that be focused on your clients. Keep them abreast of the latest developments. So even if it is a small development, whether it is on a capital raise, whether it is on your results, just keep them abreast of changes. Because at the end of the day, and I'm not talking only about the corporate customers, I'm also talking about individuals, because some of our families were also placing deposits with the bank. What will happen to the bank? Whether we will get our deposits or not. So it is important for us, and it was personally important for me to speak to each and every client of ours and infuse that confidence that the bank is going to be there. And it is there. So, it's a testimony that, within, and let me just put this on record, that within almost 3 months of moratorium, we were on moratorium on the 5th of March till about 18th of March. And on the 15th of July, we raised 15,000 crores from the public issue, which was the third largest public issue in India and the largest public issue in India in the financial services sector. That only goes to show, and we didn't go through the private equity route, we went through the public issue route to get back the confidence from the public that we lost 3 months back.
Okay, the next question is from Rahul Kumar. So he wants to know that you were talking about fintech, like it's upcoming, and he wants to know what are these skill sets as a fresher they should be having it if they want to seek a career in a banking sector.
Most importantly, I would say read a lot about what banks are doing, and quote unquote digital banking is the buzzword now. So I can't talk about the skill sets, what is required to be in a fintech industry, but I would just say that go through some of the literature on whatever and some of the use cases, because that's how you come to know what the fintech partners are doing. Just see how digitization has helped organizations to overcome their working capital challenges, how they have streamlined their entire process, how they have streamlined their entire distribution channels. So identify a problem. Now, I spoke about, an educational institution streamlining its process of collections and payments. It could be anything. It could be a distribution channel for a central sector scheme or a centrally sponsored scheme of the government. And in fact, we have worked extensively with the government in digitizing their schemes, et cetera, et cetera. So from a skill set perspective, I would just say that you should read a lot on what are the latest innovations which are happening in the financial services sector, not only focusing on India, but globally also, because a lot more focus is now on digital interventions all across the value chain. Now, whether it is agnostic of sectors. So you keep any sector, there will be digital innovation.
So there's this question by Samiksha.
Sure. Yeah.
She wants to know what are the kind of job opportunities that you anticipate going forward in the banking sector, especially after so much of turmoil when it comes to the government policies and then, of course, the digitalization and all these. So what kind of opportunities?
I would say the biggest opportunity. So banking is banking throws a lot of opportunities. So let me talk about different verticals in a bank. So one should understand what are the different verticals in a bank to understand what are the opportunities. So one is the relationship side, which is essentially the marketing side. So a relationship side can be in a branch. Relationship can be in the corporate side. A corporate, which is the wholesale side, which is the wholesale side of the business, includes multiple other businesses. So you can have a multinational corporate banking, you can have a government banking, you can have a mid-market corporate banking. So there are different verticals in the relationship team. Besides that, when you come to the branch, a branch would have opportunities in terms of, acquisition, in terms of servicing, in terms of branch-specific operations. Moving on to the risk side of business, I would say there are opportunities to be a risk analyst. That is also an equally interesting opportunity to assess, where you get an opportunity to assess the risks involved, in a project, in a company, because a lot of onus is on the risk manager when he signs off on a proposal, which requires some lending to be done to that corporate. From a risk side, we move on to the operation side, from compliance, governance. So I would say, I think there are plethora of opportunities in a banking system. There is not one. Now, it all depends upon you as an individual. What are you looking at? Are you looking at an outbound sales kind of role, or are you looking at more of a risk analyst role, or are you looking at a more role related to a product? So let's take the example of, as I spoke about products, transaction banking is one big opportunity, because that is the core of any banking system. And here I would like to quote, that one of the most successful banks in India is HDFC Bank. And HDFC Bank was built on a rock solid transaction banking platform. And when I say transaction banking platform, it is how they have revolutionized the collections and payment systems for corporates, for individuals, et cetera, et cetera. Now, if you see, you make your bill payments for your electricity, for your utility, somewhere or the other, there is a banking channel which is involved. And that digitization has been done by the banks. So whether it is from a collections perspective or from a payments perspective. So there are a plethora of opportunities that exist in the banking channel. And I would say, the onus is on you. Where you want to be. You want to be an analyst, you can go into the risk profile. You want to be on the relationship side or marketing side of the banking, you can get into the marketing side. Or you want to be more on the operation side of the banking, you can, it's your wish.
I request DG ma'am to please take the next question.
So, Mr. Rahul, where we spoke last, when you mentioned that students should be focusing more on personality development rather than focusing on what specialization to pick up. So Nikhil has a follow-up question on that, and he's asking, how should we work on personality development? What is your advice on that, or any 2 pointers or 3 pointers you want to give on that?
Make as many presentations as possible. Make as many presentations as possible. Be at the forefront, and don't be a backbencher, because at the end of the day, so how you present is how you will determine how your future will be determined. You have to be outgoing, and more importantly, speak on as many diverse subjects as possible. Don't restrict yourself to only textbooks. You are in a course where you have to think and you have to act on a lot of things. Just don't think about marketing, which is a book of Philip Kotler. Look about case studies. Go through the Harvard Business dailies. There are a lot of case studies which are there. Try and go through them. Try and solving them. Try and presenting them. My only piece of advice is read a lot of these case studies. Be more practical. Present as much as possible, because that is going to give you the confidence that you want. That's my simple advice.
Sure.
Okay, Mr. Rahul,
Yes, ma'am.
taking things forward, we have a very interesting question from Lakshay Bhatia. He's saying that what is your take on NPA? Because a lot of contemplation is going that with coming times, there's a possibility of NPAs going, greater in number. So what is your views? How are you strategizing as a banker for this?
So this question has been haunting each one of us in the banking system and outside the banking system as well. Now, one thing one should understand is that we've also seen a downturn in the economy, and which is the reason why most of the concentrated exposures on the large corporates have seen, going through the NPA route. When the going was good, banks had lent to them. And when the going became tough, they were not even able to pay. This is where most of the banks have faced, including us. When I say us, I'm talking about Yes Bank. It was largely the issue of concentrated large exposures. While regulatorily, there are certain mechanisms which are already in place, which are getting discussed for resolution. And believe me, the resolution is already underway with a lot of clients. And this is not only with us as a bank, but also across the value chain. But I think more importantly, it is the last point which I mentioned during my brief submission was that the risk mechanism systems in the bank has to be robust, taking into account current and future challenges to ensure that we have scheduling models, we have systems and processes which takes into cognizance that the venture is risky, and we should avoid such large exposures. And which is the reason why you will see that some of the banks have relatively lesser amount of NPAs, while most of the other banks have a large concentrated exposures. But I would say I think the bad times are behind us. Yes, there will be some bit of stress over the next 1 year in the aftermath of COVID, because we will see some of the sectors experiencing some more stress. But I would say that most of the banks are coming out of that stress pool of assets, and I'm sure most of the banks are focusing largely on updating their risk mechanism systems to ensure that such exposures don't happen in future. Second point here is that the focus is now shifted diametrically from a corporate-led book to a more retail and granular-led book, which is far more secure and also sustainable for growth for a bank.
Okay, so this is a question by Sakshi Dua. She wants to know that in these times, she heard your profile and you have been with the Yes Bank for the last 16 years. So she wants to know that what made you stick to one organization, and is it advisable? What is your take? Is it advisable for your juniors to keep hopping, which is a trend now, or just stay with one organization and continue? Probably some career advice from your side.
So I can only talk about my experience, and while I've seen some of the colleagues jumping from one organization to the other organization, but banking system is such that you have to give yourself time, and and my only piece of advice here is that if you want to really move on, then think about moving on within the organization and not outside the organization. Today, you are in a relationship role. Work for 4 years. Understand the business. Understand how you go about meeting the customers, how you win business from the customers, and then move on to the next role, which is more from a retail, from a risk perspective. Example, you're going into a risk profile where you are assessing the same set of clients with whom you used to, forefront, or you were the marketing manager for that particular client. So my piece of advice to you and to the students here is that while you have the opportunity of hopping on, but my simple piece of advice to you is look at opportunities within the organization to grow, because younger organizations, and I can talk about myself. I started off in 2003. And I've grown and I've handled multiple businesses within the organization, right from project management to marketing, corporate communications, PR, and institutional business for the last almost 12 years. So therefore, it has given me an opportunity to grow, to understand different facets of business, and then the learning is holistic, because unless and until you know the risk part of the business, you can't succeed in a front end retail, in a front end relationship manager role. You can't succeed. So you need to understand all facets of the business and then move on. So my simple piece of advice is, if you're thinking of moving on in your careers, first learn the business, understand the different types of business that the bank does, or the financial services does, or for that matter, any other business. So learn different departments, go into different departments. And here I will give you an example of a public sector undertaking. So if anybody gets a job in a public sector undertaking, in a public sector undertaking, a GM level officer gets rotated every 3 years. An additional GM level officer gets rotated every 3 years. A senior manager level officer also gets rotated every 3 years in multiple departments. So that trains them for leadership role in future. And that is my simple piece of advice, that learn as much as you can within the organization, and you will have ample opportunities to grow within the organization. Of course, if the organization is also supportive of grooming talent, nothing like it. And that is why I've stuck to the bank, even in the most challenging times.
Okay, so the next question is from Lakshmi Gupta. She wants to know that you said that you took marketing specialization, and yet you are working in a financial industry, right? So she wants to know that any particular reason for picking this combination, and how did it help you in growing in your organization?
Finance was my background, and I wanted to do finance, but more importantly, I wanted to get into the marketing side of banking, which we call in the banking parlance relationship management, which is more from a corporate wholesale perspective. Finance helped me in understanding how we write credit proposals, because the relationship manager is supposed to work on credit proposals, get that approved, within the bank. That requires the understanding of finance. And when I talk about finance, I'm talking about ratios. I'm talking about reading balance sheet, understanding financial statements, without which you can't be a successful relationship manager. So my take was very simple. I wanted to get into the banking and financial services sector, which was booming at that time, 2002, 2003, and I decided to get into a role which is more marketing oriented, which is what I thought I can. That is best suited for me. After 18 years, I think I took the right choice of getting into the marketing role with some financial background.
Next question is that how will India digital space, we are moving very fast towards it, and this COVID thing has increased the pace, will bring about a transformation in the banking sector, and especially to the underprivileged. How are we going to penetrate into the bottom of the pyramid or the rural sector of the country?
Professor Shivani, I would say that we, as a banking system, have already penetrated the rural economy and extensively, whether it is through self-help groups, or it is through directly through the banking channel, or through the banking correspondent channel. So banks and financial institutions today are not only relying on their own physical infrastructure, but they are also relying on banking correspondence across sectors, even in the remotest towns of Chhattisgarh, which are left-wing extremist areas also, through a network of banking correspondence. Coming back to the second point, which is far more important, and that was the crux of my brief submission, was that digital is the way to go. Now, digital is not only restricted to urban areas, and there are, and I can quote that we have worked extensively in digitizing the process for the governments across states. And let me give you a very simple example. There is a central sector scheme, a centrally sponsored scheme of Government of India, which is for pregnant women, called Pradhan Mantri Matritva Vandana Yojana. And there is a certain outlay that goes to lactating women, in states all across the country. We have digitized this process in a particular state, and what we've done is that we are doing those disbursements, which goes to the beneficiary. Now, the beneficiaries are in far-flung areas, across various districts of that particular state. So this shows that we have reached the last mile. I think the first and the foremost important thing here was what the government initiated in terms of Jan Dhan accounts, which got opened all across India. Of course, there was a lot of hue and cry about, these Jan Dhan accounts were used for X means, Y means, etc., etc. I'm not getting into those things, but that gave an opportunity for even the underbanked areas to have, banking. So banking got a flip through banking correspondent channels at the rural sector. They were able to open their accounts, and we were able to disburse even to the remotest corners of states. So, which is what I would say the best part of digitization, and this is where fintech partners have done a remarkable job, and so are the banking my banking friends who have worked extensively across transaction banking, across digital banking to make it happen.
So, Mr. Rahul, next question would be that we have banking industry has done very elaborate process of KYC, and it's very stringent, but we still see a lot of defaults, a lot of frauds that's happening. So, as being at such a senior position, what do you think what is lacking in our system, and what should more we be doing so that these frauds can be taken care of?
Ma'am, I can only say that frauds are extremely difficult to stop, and they will continue to happen. But what is more important from a banking system is how resolute, how robust your risk mechanism systems are, how robust your procedures and policies are, how robust your financial intelligence unit. So each bank has a FIU which monitors such accounts, which monitors cash inflow into certain accounts. So therefore, I think it is more important for the banking channel to be far more vigilant in the coming times, and also ensure that you have, as I mentioned, whether it is from an individual perspective or from a corporate perspective, you should have risk management mechanisms in place, matrices in place that can trigger before an eventual default can happen. We've seen certain defaults happening, in some of our partners, like the PhonePe, or of course not Paytm, but at least in PhonePe and a few others, which are app-based, where we've seen frauds happening through accounts. So we have sounded off, and as banking system is also evolving, I would say that a lot of innovation is happening within the banking system across operations and service delivery to ensure that frauds are reduced to a certain extent. Of course, they can't be stopped because people will have they'll find ways and means to go around the system. But I think the systems are far more robust than what they used to be earlier.
This next question is, what do you feel is the Indian banking system when we compare it with the international? So where are we, how far are we, and how we can bridge this gap if we are far behind them then? What do you think?
It's a very, very good question. And so let me give a perspective. And this perspective comes from the fact that where, the banking system originated in India. Somewhere between 1789 till about 1961. So there are three phases. I would say 1789 till about 1961. 1969. 1969 to 1991. And 1991, till today. The first phase, we had very small, small banks, private banks, family-owned banks, money lenders, etc., etc. But that was still about 1969. 1969 to 1991 was the process of nationalization, where we saw, some of the large banks that you hear, whether it is the Canara Bank or the Allahabad Bank or the Bank of India, Union Bank. Mind you, these were banks which were privatized. These were private banks before 1969. And they got nationalized in 69, and they became public sector banks. So that was a phase when the economic cycle was supported by the public sector banks in India. 1991 saw the advent of private sector bank, which is ICICI, HDFC, and the erstwhile UTI Bank, which now is Axis Bank. And then, of course, we had IDBI as well. So that that changed the dynamics of what banking is all about. The customer orientation of banking started with the private sector banks coming on board. Now, a related question to this is how we the question was how we compare ourselves to the international banks. So let me tell you, a related question is how whether consolidation in the Indian banking system will create institutions that can compete with global financial institutions. The answer is yes. And in the last almost 5-6 years, you've seen efforts being made to consolidate banks. The first one was SBI and Associates. So all 5 associates of SBI got merged in the State Bank of India. And today, the State Bank of India is top 50 banks globally. We want to be top 10. To ensure that you're top 10, you have to have consolidation in banking, so that at least you can reduce the amount of risk, consolidate the profits, and work towards rationalization of branches and create institutions of excellence, which is what is the focus of the government today, to consolidate not only the public sector banks, and which is I'm sure would have seen the consolidation of banks happening as of 1st April 2020, when we created 4 big institutions. So this is a step in that direction to benchmark yourself with global financial institutions. And I'm sure you'll see some consolidation also happening in the private sector to make it more competitive in the coming times.
Okay, so Mr. Rahul, I'd just like to ask you one more thing. That during your stay at NDIM, any special memories that you have that you'd like to share with our audience? They're really looking forward to hear from you that.
There are a lot of memories. I think the only memory that I have is of the cafeteria, where we used to dine out, which was I would say the best time of my life. And thereafter it has been I would say a topsy-turvy. So that was a time when we had the best time spending time with friends in the cafeteria. Then of course the first presentation which I made, and I still recollect, I think I made the presentation on disinvestment, which was a very topical subject at that time. Our dean, our director at that time was Professor Adhikari. So that was, I think, I would personally say that was a turning point for me personally, because, that was the first time I got an opportunity to address my fellow colleagues, my fellow, batchmates, and also gave a lot of confidence on how to address, how to present. So these are the things that you learn, in a B school. Going back to what I said earlier, I think this is the time for you to enjoy, the presentations that you make. Make as much presentations as you can in every topic that you pick. Just make a presentation and present it, because that'll give you the kind of confidence that you want, and that'll shape your career ahead.
So there are more questions dropping in, but probably this would be the last question for the day.
Sure.
And what has been your success mantra? So how have you, what are those things, top 2-3 things that you keep in mind?
Professor Shivani, I think there's only one thing which I have to say. And for me personally, and this is something which I have made it as my personal motto or my personal goal, is that nothing is impossible. So when you, so if I look back, 2002, 2003, when I started my career with Yes Bank, of course, I worked very briefly with the Dutch investment bank, and thereafter moved to Bombay, to start Yes Bank, and then came back to Delhi. I think the most challenging time was to build an institution of trust right from scratch, and when you do that, it gives you a lot of confidence to face challenges in future. So what I think the only submission that I have, and my personal goal has always been nothing is impossible. Do whatever you can and ensure that it's done. And that's how we have built this business, and that's all what is required. So just have that zeal and confidence and ensure that the work is done. That's all.
Yeah, and I can see the conviction in your voice when you're saying that, Okay, so now I would like to call upon Dr. B.M. Bansal, Chairman, New Delhi Institute of Management, to kindly extend a formal vote of thanks to Mr. Kumar.
Hope you're doing well, sir.
I'm so happy, to be honest, very happy to see you.
It's a pleasure, sir. It's a pleasure.
And more happy to listen to you. Okay. You really feel so good, when the kids that you are trying to groom, when they start guiding you, then you feel really at the top of the world. Okay. Yeah. So I'm so happy to listen to what you're saying.
Thank you very much, sir.
No, it's a pleasure. And, you still seem to be so happy, so confident, and so trustful for an organization with which you have been attached all these years, despite all the, bad news or the tough circumstances or tough times you passed through. So your people like you are taking care and sailing through the whole thing. So that's really even more remarkable. Otherwise, so many people have left it. You could have also left it.
Absolutely.
So you're sticking on to this and trying to steer it in these tough times is, I'm sure, the real learning that only you would have and that others who have left will not have it. So,
absolutely, sir. Absolutely.
Yeah, that is what is going to really be of tremendous help to you in the coming year. That's what I presume, because tough times are the real teaching or the lessening period. So it's really good that you're carrying on with them.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
And how's the family? How's everything going on?
All is well, sir. All is well. And thank you very much, sir, once again. I'm getting connected to the Institute almost after almost 18 years. It's a long time. But it looks so young, to be part of the...
But that is one explanation you need to owe, because you're almost, the initial batches.
Yeah.
So why have you been absenting? If you had some commitment to your Yes Bank, you also had commitment to your alma mater.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. And I would like to apologize for that. But it's just, is something which I will take into account and ensure that, I think we stay more connected and maybe, in case if there is any talk or anything which is required from my side, sir, I'll be more than willing to.
Required. It's not, Rahul. You have to set the agenda for yourself, as you just now mentioned.
Sure.
You have to set the agenda along with your other colleagues, your batchmates, or the guys of younger batches whom you are in touch with. You need to see what you can be, adding intellectual value, or what kind of value can be adding to the college.
Awesome.
It's always, the more the college gets into prominence, the more things happen here.
Yes, sir.
Obviously, it's for us also, when my engineering college, when it became NIT, we all felt very proud of it. And thereafter, the college doesn't know, we opened chapters across the country. We are running it. The director there doesn't know. Nobody knows. They don't even support us. You know, we did such a big international event and we called them. None of them came. But we feel that it is our commitment to our college, because once it is standing the top 10 or top 20 of the country, so we as the alumni take the name with a bigger, you know, pride in our heads. So
Absolutely,
you need
sir.
to be, yeah. So you know it, I don't have to tell you. So you chalked out the agenda along with your other friends. And it is your responsibility to come back to us कि सब हम ये 10 काम कर रहे हैं, हमें support करिए.
I will get connected, sir. In fact, I'm
Yeah.
already connected to some of our batchmates,
Yeah.
and we will definitely come back to you, sir,
Yeah.
with a defined agenda, and also which is largely industry led,
Yeah.
to make aware students on the latest things which are happening in the sector. So while of
Yeah.
course we are working in the BFSI sector, but this gives us an opportunity to also learn about other sectors, because banking any which ways is a fulcrum. And
Yeah.
everything revolves around the banking system. So I think we'll do that, sir. And
Yeah.
I will come back to you, sir, on this.
Yeah, because you also mentioned about, you know, risk assessment or risk profiling,
Yeah.
or, you know, assessing or profiling various clients, because this seems to be, you know, the immediate requirement now, because although we keep on touching and rethinking on the curriculum, keep on, you know, working at it almost every semester, unlike that some people who do it after 2 years.
Yeah.
Even today we learn something from you, we'll add to the curriculum tomorrow. That as an advantage we have, that, you know, one is very, very flexible and at it, hands on it all the time.
Sure,
So
sir.
couple of things I would, you know, you said that you will get back with all your colleagues and your other batchmates. I'll also request Dr. Chand to please send your curriculum to Rahul, and you
Okay, sir.
just see from one small angle as to what, because, you know, gradually what is happening, and that's what I'm trying to do at the NDIM. One is you keep on doing all the things that we have been improving upon or adding upon. Yet I think we need to get into some kind of certification, so certificate in risk profiling, certificate in why thing, so that when you go out to the market, your CV stands out very clearly. When you say I've done this program 10 hours or 15 hours onto this, at least you will feel कि इस student को, इस बच्चे को कुछ इस चीज के बारे में मालूम है, तो let me first of all segregate or identify his or her CV apart from all the remaining. I'm sure, you know, just kindly think on these lines.
Sure.
What issues in the next 1 year or 2 years industry is looking for, so that we can possibly lay bigger emphasis or more stress on those aspects.
Sure, sir.
Because you belong to now this industry for almost 16 years. So you would really know what is the real demand. तुम्हें अगर आज चाहिए तो किस तरीके का बच्चा चाहिए.
I agree, sir. I fully agree, sir. And I will work with Dr. Chand on this particular item, sir.
Chalo, Dr. Chand is the HOD
Yeah.
for the finance here. So she will be now, you know, taking inputs
Yes, sir.
from you.
Sure, sir. Sure.
I'll do that.
So thank you so much, Rahul. And now the ball is in your court for all things.
Thank you very much, sir. It is indeed a pleasure. And we'll be connected, sir, and more often now. And I'll also request some of my batchmates to also come on board and maybe give some guidance to the students on opportunities and how they need to prepare themselves.
Yeah. And since you have come after a long time, I'm sure you are not one of the industry mentors for the students. You know, we have to be honest, you know, tumhare waqt pe college was in the nascent stages.
Yes.
But you had that great advantage that, you know, there were very few MBA colleges, and we could at that time also provide the right kind of faculty and the right kind of environment for you to grow.
Yes.
So now the thing is, we have a very successful mentorship program where very senior people like you, I remember, I'm just forgetting his name. He was also president at Yes Bank more than 10 years or 12 years back. He was one of the mentors, one of the first mentors to come into this scheme. Okay, so what in Tushar Pandey was there.
Yeah. Tushar, of course, he left about 5 years ago. But
correct. So Tushar was the first one who accepted to be an industry mentor, and he used to spend a lot of time. Rather, he once rang me up. He said, "Ki sab kya baat? Your team has not contacted me for any mentoring sessions." I said, "Tushar, kar lenge. Tumhe kya pareshani hai, bhai?" He said, "Nahi sab, I have filled it up, and mere annual appraisal mein I give this as additional thing कि मैं ये कर रहा हूँ, मैं college के बच्चों को mentor कर रहा हूँ." So, this also, and so many other senior alumni like you have been taking time to mentor the students.
Sure, sir.
और अभी तो और भी convenient हो गया that everything is turning online. And even during the COVID days of last 4 months, at least 50 mentoring sessions have been taken by the industry colleagues like you with the students at NDIM. So you have to be immediately taking up that role and also associate all other colleagues and NDIM, alumni, because this is our job to keep on passing on the knowledge to our younger batches.
Absolutely, sir.
Goes
without saying, sir. Goes without saying.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
All the best, and keep connected. Come back and see what the college is now. You'll really feel even more happy when you come to the campus.
I will do that, sir. I will do that in the short term itself.
Yeah. Thank you, and wishing you all the very best.
Thank you, Professor Shivani. Thank you, Dr. Chand. Thank you, Bhumika. Thank you, sir, very much. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. So with this, we come to an end to this wonderful, energetic session. I would like to thank our guest and, of course, our alumni, Mr. Kumar. Thank you, Chairman, sir. Thank you, Director General, NDIM, and Head CRC, Bhumika ma'am, for joining us, and Dr. Chand. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
So thank you, Shivani, for connecting with Rahul. After all these years. Yeah.
That's what I told him right at the outset, that he should drop in sometime to see the campus now.
I will do that. I will do that sooner than later,
Now you're not in Mumbai, you're back to Delhi, so you should drop in.
I will do that. I will do that sooner than later. I will do that. Thank you very much once again.
Everybody have a nice evening.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you, sir.
Bye.